Welcome to discussing all of those cool gender identity things in tabletop games. I'm really excited to be here with this beautiful crew. We're going to go through some intro kind of vibe things. We're going to go through some cool moderator notes that I have as a moderator. I like putting things on myself first so that I'm the first one to awkwardly start conversations and not to randomly throw it to someone else to begin with, because I don't want you to suffer from my awkwardness. So I'm going to introduce myself first. What I would love to know about each and every single one of you is your name, your pronouns, and maybe a little bit about you. Like what kind of stuff do you do? Where can we find you if you're like a person who does rad stuff? And then also, like, I don't know, maybe your favorite cool gay color. I don't know what colors are gay. I'm just coming up with more things at this moment. I'm Millie and/or Bunny Harlan. I think all colors are gay. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My pronouns are she and her or they and them. I'm like a 90s anime styled comfort VTuber over at twitch.tv/bunnyhearted. I'm also trans and gay and a massive nerd. And I'm chronically ill. I've been having a really rough flare up over the last couple of days, and I'm very, very sleepy. It's like 11:30 p.m. my time, and I'm in not a small amount of pain. So I'm going to do my best for moderation and facilitation and stuff, but I could probably use the assistance of all of you on that. So if I miss something, please let me know. I want to know on our secret little chat kind of thing here. Just so y'all know the order that I have for introduction stuff. I have a alternate Kelly, or now a non-alternate Kelly, a regulation for this particular stream. Kelly on the introduction queue, then Cal, then Tasha, then Amy, and then Ivy. Does that sound good to y'all? Okay, awesome. Well, if you're feeling ready to go, Kelly, and please introduce the cat. Oh my gosh.
Yes, so this is Buddy. He is our stream cat, and he tried to jump on my desk, so I had to stop him, which does involve me picking him up. But if I hold him close enough, you could probably hear him purr. My name is Kelly. My pronouns are they, them. I run tech for Tabletop Titties. I am a storyteller. I am neurodivergent. I work a lot on games and stuff. And I'm distracted by my cat now. My favorite
I didn't even do a gay color. It was my own question.
All right, you go first.
I don't know. Purple. There we go, Carrie. It's because it's my wife's favorite color. Bam.
I think I definitely got more into purple after I came out. So I'll go with that one. It's like the safety color. It's good.
All right, Purple Gang, let's go. Speaking of Purple Gang, Kelly, you're now a Purple Gang. No, go ahead for introduction purposes. Yeah, it's you.
What is this panel already?
Hi, I'm Cal. Use he, him pronouns. And my favorite, I think my favorite gay color is like orange.
Ooh. It's a classic. Is there anything you want to tell us about you other than your pronouns and favorite gay color? Are you happy to continue?
Oh, geez, there's not much to know. I like growing my hair out. I do podcasts about 90s cartoons. I like tabletop games. I've been doing it for 20 years. And running tabletop games, that is. And yeah, I'm terrible at these things. I feel so put on the spot. I was over-prepped for the gay color.
That's why I go first
to talk about myself.
Yeah, absolutely. I was saying I go first because I am the absolute worst at these, so therefore everyone can do better than me. It's great. Yeah. Speaking of doing better than me, hey Tasha, you feeling ready to go with names, pronouns, cool stuff about you, and maybe your favorite gay color?
Sorry, is that me next?
It is you, yay.
Sorry. Okay, my name is Natasha. You can find me at Natasha Tuskovich Designs here on Twitch and everywhere else. My pronouns are she, they, he, any. You really can't fuck this up unless you're trying to be offensive. My favorite gay color is purple, only because purple would never be my favorite color otherwise, except I feel that for obvious reasons, it's a very gay color. And that's where I'm at with that one.
Sounds good to me. Thank you. Amy, are you feeling up for introduction things?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Amy. My pronouns are she, her, or they, them. And my favorite gay color, that is hard to pick because there's many of them. But okay, like I am a fan of purple, but I also really like teal. and like turquoise.
Ooh.
Like really like, but I also really like, at least for my hair, like royal deep blue, like the color of my curtains. So I don't know. I don't know if these kind of two separate colors or not. But
Well, and then the best is when your hair is a combination of those colors.
right, I need to fix this.
Go on Indigo Galaxy hair.
Right, I miss that. And you can find me on Twitch at Paradoxical Ghoul. I sometimes play video games and scream while I try very badly to actually make any progress forward in anything. If it's not like something that like holds your hand through like turn-based combat, and even then it's questionable. I definitely should never raise children in The Sims. That is a anyway.
Who should?
I'm a regular
No one should ever raise children in The Sims because you are automatically a sociopath.
Yeah.
I mean,
Chaos
possibly.
ensues.
I'm regular on
Oh,
Dork
man.
Tales. I run the Dork Tales Discord server, and yeah, I'm in a lot of games, and I think that is enough about me. I'm going to be like quiet now.
Well,
Oh,
I hope
great.
only for a
Ultraviolet is
moment.
such a gay color. Good call.
Ooh, oh yeah, totally. Okay, awesome. So I don't want to do a dramatic intro to be like, speaking of gay colors. But so anyways, Ivy, if
I mean, you
you're
could've.
ready to introduce yourself. Okay. Speaking of gay
goth.
colors,
All I wear is
Ivy.
black. So like, hi, I'm Ivy. I'm
Brilliant.
Gamer the Girl everywhere that you can possibly find me. My pronouns are she, her. I DM over on Dice Cream Sandwich as their secondary DM and currently only DM. I professionally DM, as well as I am one of the founding and board members of Rolling for Charity every year, where we do 24-hour charity games. And I'm also the founder and CEO of the Crit Awards. So that's my main project. Oh, and PR manager for Geek Girl Con. So I wear a lot of hats.
Amazing. Well, I'm so thankful to have you and all of you here with me talking about gender and identity in tabletop gaming. I will say that I'm going to be trying to look for questions in chat, but I'm also going to be like looking at all of you. So if you see questions in chat that you want to make sure we cover, put them in our secret little group chat kind of thing here. And I have a few sort of like maybe introductory questions. So we could randomly start on one of those. We could choose something from chat. But I sort of feel like one of the overall big high level questions that I want to do is to sort of talk a little bit about like how you tell a queer story and what makes a story queer. I want to talk about inclusivity at the table and accessibility and all of that stuff. But I sort of want to start with that idea of what makes like a narrative and a story and a role-playing experience queer. Because like I don't know how to define that.
It seems like a very broad topic. Yes.
Mm-hmm. We can do popcorn style if you want to put hands up or just pop in if you really you're up for it.
I just want to say that I can take questions from the Twitch chat and dump them in our little private one. Just
That would be
put them
so
there.
amazing. I would really appreciate that. Thank you.
I just want to say that popcorn style is the cutest way I've ever heard to describe that.
But that's what it is. You're like you're popping up. It's cute. It's good.
Okay, I'm not okay. I will preface. I'm not saying this is the definitive way to tell a queer
You're speaking
story.
as the authority on it. Okay.
Yes,
Of course,
all right.
Noted.
You're the
World
professional.
leading
Got it.
expert in queer storytelling. I mean, I
And
feel all of us can only really speak from our perspective, right? So
I'm
that's
mass
fair.
presenting. Everything I say is the right thing all the time, and nobody can dispute me ever.
I'll put a dramatic mustache on. Hang on.
Personally, I think in tabletop RPGs, at least, telling a queer story is anything that you as the player either feel uncomfortable exploring in your real life, something that you are curious about testing out in like an RPG setting, or the obvious one, which is just telling a story of something that's happened to you in your life that a lot of queer folk have access to. A good example is in high school. I didn't realize I was telling a queer story with one of my characters because I was very like, I was the het guy that made fun of everyone who was weird. But I was playing a changeling, and that changeling would often switch their genders and switch their, cadences and ways that they would present themselves and stuff. And it was just, it was tactical, right? And then looking back now, it was definitely like the first instance of me like exploring gender in a very closeted, uninformed way. So much. it's just practical. It's obvious that a lady would do better in this position, right? So, so much so that I actually revisited it years later on our stream, playing an ancestor of my character in high school, sort of revisiting what that exploration means to me now. Now that I've kind of come to terms with what what I was expressing there, and being a happier changeling. And I think it's like telling a queer story, both from the perspective of like, I didn't know what I was doing and kind of exploring, to now like how much I've learned and where I am today.
Dig it.
I think it's really interesting because like I feel like I kind of did the same, and I wonder if that's going to be a similar story with that little like dipping
I
your
feel
toes
a
in
recurring-
to queerness through tabletop.
All right, let's
games.
go.
I mean, I want to keep going around and see if other folks have thoughts.
I mean, everyone raise your
on
hands.
What makes a story
Yeah.
queer? We can raise our hands and be like, did we experiment with queerness and transes through tabletop gaming? I'd have to raise 2 hands. I got 2 hands. Go with my other hand. Oh my gosh, being tracked back. Okay, only got 1 hand. But yes, absolutely did.
What
I mean,
happened
it's
to your
really how
other
I
hand?
explored coming out, right? It's my
Um,
microphone stand is in the way. I've got like a dramatic singing microphone stand. It's
Oh, I see
stupid
it.
obnoxious.
That makes
yeah.
so much more sense now.
Yeah, so I do secretly have 2 hands for the moment, at least.
It's off topic of the question you asked, but something I did notice was that in tabletop or LARP or like even online role playing like forums and all throughout the years, whether it was like AOL, like role playing forums or like play by post or whatever, I feel like
Looking up
there
play-by-post.
are I feel like there are a lot more like there's a higher percentage of the player base that is queer or trans than I would have initially expected. Like, like mostly
Mm.
expected to just see a bunch of other like dudes wanting to like wield swords or whatever. But I feel like there's a very high representation there. And I wonder if it's that opportunity to be in a fantasy where you can explore that other identity that attracts people that are open to playing and role playing with each other, and where it doesn't matter if the storyteller is playing like a woman or a man or neither, right? And it's
That safe space.
it's kind of almost
Mhm.
yeah, it's probably not in every circle, but as far as my experience has gone, it's kind of, whether that was the purpose or not, has been a safe space for all of these, even people that like Kelly was saying, oh well, looking back on that now, like yeah, that was clearly a thing, right? Even like straight people or people that haven't figured their identity out, maybe that's like the catalyst. So where they're like, wait a second, I really liked LARPing like in these like man's clothes or this like woman's clothes, or I really liked pretending to be like a skater punk from the 90s. I'm going to change my style.
They can be
Small
cool
or
out here.
big,
Hang on.
you getting to explore that, it just attracts that kind of like openness, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can really see that too, actually. And I think like I want to keep going around and discussing like the overall concept. But I think it's important as we talk about gender and identity to sort of like recognize that even cis people have like their own individualized sense of what their gender and identity means to them. There may be this like broad cultural definition, but each individual person's like experience of that is totally different. So someone who is like totally cis can explore what their gender means to them through tabletop gaming as well as someone who is trans. And that might even be liberating and cool for them to do. I don't know. I think it's more important for trans people though. We should get more points.
They get a points modifier.
I mean, the points made out, the rules don't matter, but I want more points. Yeah. At least in +2. Sorry, any more thoughts on sort of like queer stories and connection to queerness and transness and tabletop gaming?
I think we've kind of touched on all the things that I would mention generally. Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Hmm.
Well, do we feel we want to go talk about more topics? Like, how do you represent queerness in games?
Sure.
Well, let's do it. How do you represent queerness in games?
Do you want the serious answer or the funny answer?
I would
Also want the
love
same thought,
both,
Amy.
Start
in
with the
whichever
fun.
order you prefer.
Start with the
Play a
funny.
game and be queer.
Okay, awesome,
Oh.
awesome. Yeah, here.
I was
here for
gonna
that.
I know
say
it's 2 steps.
I was gonna ask how many tieflings. So like,
Yeah.
You can
Um,
tell how gay the table is by how many people are playing tieflings. Is that what you're
Yeah.
yeah,
saying?
changelings.
I'm
It's
Good
also a pretty
witness.
good
song.
metric.
Oh no.
Wait, that
Playing
explains a
human this
lot.
season.
I've never
You
played
just
a
blew my
tiefling.
mind.
Most of my characters, like the large majority of my characters, are tieflings.
Yeah.
With a
I
couple
mean,
of
again,
changelings.
changelings, because like, I mean, I have ADHD and am non-binary. Like, I can't make a choice. Every day I want to be a different presentation. So
I would say
Um,
plasmoids are starting to
Really
get
valid.
into that category as well.
I
Ooh,
did play
yeah.
a plasmoid.
just a big old
Yeah.
moist boy. Yeah.
Oh, my speed.
Perfect.
Definitely
Exactly
That
what I was
is the
thinking.
moist. Wait, I've now realized a different
12
connotation for that
games.
sentence. I received your remarks.
I mean, if anyone, please interrupt me. But my belief on it is like, if you're trying to tell any story, come at it with a place of love, 100%. Like, you want a table that is going to be a safe place to do it. You want to come at it with either like a feeling of understanding of like what you want to explore, or like a genuine desire to represent this thing with love and compassion and care. And if any of those factors aren't present, don't do it. The last panel talked about like representing cultures as well, and it's sort of the same deal. It's like, you don't want to be othering the character because they want to explore their queerness. You want to either like bolster them up or send difficulties at them that they can themselves like figure out and manipulate and navigate. But if you're just coming in with like the token gay guy and he's like so fabulous, and you're just like being this straight guy who's playing like a super queer character just for the lulz, like, don't, and also get away from me.
Yeah, I was going to say that just feels like homophobia with extra steps.
Yeah.
It's like a
I
lot
just
of
feel like
work.
any character you're gonna include that is not something you're familiar with, it's a good idea to do some research, talk to people you know, like actually find out like, hey, this is kind of what I was thinking of doing. Like, does that check out? Like, that's fine, right? Is this okay? Is there something I should change?
Do you mean like consulting folks from different queer communities about like portrayal of that kind of queer character?
Exactly. Just consulting and doing some research on kind of figuring out like, hey, is this like a stereotype, or is this like a reasonable representation?
And
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
knowing that not everyone has the same opinion, and you can't just take one person's like acceptance, like,
Yes.
yeah, no, that's fine, whatever you're doing. And it's like, well, actually, no, a whole bunch of people don't agree with that. So you have to kind of get a mix as much as you can.
Yeah,
Have
absolutely.
Queer friends. base characters on your favorite queer friends.
Okay, BRB.
Make a
making
group
the
chat
best
with all of your
party
queer
ever.
friends and ask them hard-hitting questions.
Yes. Put the load on them to discuss what it is that you're allowed to do. We love that.
It says the
New
leading
character
expert.
concept. I'm just going to make a Discord channel with my favorite queer friends, which I will just choose in some sort of terrifying dice rolling system. And they will collectively play this character in all decision making and portrayals. This sounds like a delightful plan. I'm sorry, Ivy, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, says the leading expert. You know, like he said, what they say go.
I mean, that's true. That's true. I mean, except for us, we're leading experts.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, as long as a leading expert isn't like a leading question.
Yeah, exactly.
Valid. I mean, I feel like
Love that makes sense.
something that was touched on in the last panel, which feels really relevant to me here, is sort of the idea of like asking why you want to portray something like that. Whether or not you want to portray like queer individuals, or if you're trying to portray like a queer story, like ask the reasoning for it, right? Like, are you trying to make your table more inclusive through this? Are you trying to tell a narrative that is familiar to you or that is unfamiliar to you? Are you trying to like showcase the destruction of weird, annoying, like crypto fascists in medieval times because that's fun and screw them. I mean, for when it comes down to whatever reasons you're trying to bring queerness into your table, I think it's important to like take a moment to recognize them, because I think that should really inform your approach, and really make it so easy, I think, to avoid doing stereotypes. Because if you're doing something that's like, I want to include marginalized people as a joke, I would hope that that would be obviously not a super fun approach for, you know, marginalized people typically. I also am realizing, as we did this whole intro thing, I'm going to need to take a moment to do some like cool sponsor stuff, but we'll talk a little bit more about this as well, because I failed my moderation job. I was too busy being excited, but we will return to that in a little bit. I want to finish off this topic first.
A good, or I don't know, a thing that we also do in our vampire game is that we don't want to explore queer stories in a Victorian era. So like I wholesale said when we started our show, and this was like it kind of felt like in contrast to a lot of vampire shows, but we wanted to like strip away the like marginalized genders and identities and stuff from our stories, so that we could explore like the beast within without also being like, hey, my character's gay and I have problems with that. It's like we have some of the biggest people in our city are like this power lesbian couple that's super out, and like I don't know, I just removed like all like homophobia and bigotry from our story, because that's not what I wanted to talk about. So in our Victorian
game
era,
about vampires,
yeah,
that aren't
they're
real.
openly gay.
Story you want
Like,
to tell.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And even though it's technically like historical London, it's like it's a fantasy world where we were all accepted much earlier.
I mean, and there are vampires. I feel like somebody's harping on chaos
Yeah.
sort of historical accuracy in a story about like, you know, vampires grasp
With
at the
magic.
straws of humanity while they consume each other. It's probably not someone to be taken so seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sort of just touching on that, like you're telling a story that is fictional, and even if it's based on history and a period of history, you don't have to use real history when you don't want to. It is, you get to choose that with your table, and as the DM, like that is your prerogative.
Yeah, I feel that a lot with trigger warning subject. This panel is not about, but a lot of people will make like like fantasy medieval settings, but you know that still happens because it happened in the olden days, even though this isn't history.
Which
yeah,
honestly, that'd be great to bring. I think probably will get touched upon at the History at the Table panel that's coming up this weekend, I think on Saturday.
Mhm. Fantasy versus history is it's weird.
oh yeah,
Going,
that's going to be
going off of
fun.
that, I've taken any of that away from the table in general. Any game I run, there is no racism, there is no homophobia, there
Chris,
is none of that. because there
Caitlin,
doesn't
and
need to be.
Orion tipped
We experience
$107.
enough
Go
of real
Dork
life
Tales.
daily.
Less than 3
It
from
doesn't need to
Chris,
be at our
Caitlin,
tables
and
as well.
Orion.
Especially in the year, oh God, what are we at? 2023, where
2020 part
Oh
3.
gosh,
2020 part.
it just continues.
Yeah.
Revenge of
Ouch,
the
that
Sun of
hurt, Val.
2020.
Well, and sometimes it can be interesting to explore that too, as long as everyone at the table is on board.
yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm. I think that's a very important part, because I think like using tabletop gaming as an escape, as a spot where you can simply like authentically be you and be your players, or be an aspect of you, or be, you know, a different kind of presentation or expression that you want to explore. Rad as heck. Using tabletop gaming to go like, you know, challenge homophobia and bigotry and systems and explore those sort of dynamics, also rad as heck. Holy heck. Communicate that with your players beforehand, sort out which one they're into.
Yeah.
Oh, we just got a big donation from Caitlin,
Ooh, we
Chris,
totally
and
did.
Orion.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Orion.
Chris and Orion. Aw,
Oh, look at that.
really
We
appreciate the
jumped.
support. And Tabletop Titties with the raid too. Welcome on in, all y'all.
We're
I do
looking at
want to take this moment before we continue on to different topics, talk about some cool moderator stuff I should have done. So I'm going to do some of that stuff now. The first part of that is going a cool, amazing tangent about a cool, amazing sponsor, because did you know Dork Tales is sponsored? by Bookworm Games, who make really, really amazing products. Like my favorite, which is the one I'm absolutely going to talk about here, is they make edible dice, which is like the coolest thing I've ever heard of. The thing that I want to do, I need to do this in an IRL game one day, is to just, roll a d20, tell, like I roll a 1, right? You got to wait until you get the 1 and then just go bad dice, never again, and just take a big bite out of it. Just like totally straight faced, never mention this interaction ever again. This is like one of my life goals. I need to do this. So anyways, if you wish to join me in this beautiful life goal, and you would like 10% off, you can go to bookwormgames.com with a Y, WYRM, and use code Dork Tales to save 10% on your dice shopping dreams.
Any dice is edible if you're persistent enough.
I know, right? It's amazing. I also want to say that this is a fundraiser for Dork Tales. Dork Tales Expo helps to keep Dork Tales running. This is a channel that is so important to me and so important to so many other people. I'm really, really proud of the work that's gone into it by Kelly and so many other people. And I cannot wait to see so many more amazing, different Kellys, but you're part of it too on occasion. It's just so amazing. And I cannot wait to see how this space continues to grow and evolve and keep being amazing into the future. And you can be a part of ensuring that is the case. Are you pointing in dramatic directions like dorks? Oh my gosh. Because you can support right now. You can do exclamation mark incentives for all sorts of details. But funds go to like art and tech and costuming and role-playing books and stream and music and maybe a cool theme song and advertising and funding and editing, because editing is the worst. And also like, food, because people need to eat and live and keep being able to put on this work. Because, unfortunately, we don't live in an economic system where they can just do this stuff. You got to justify it, unfortunately, economically. And that comes down to all of y'all. So if you are really enjoying the content on this channel, please think about supporting them. There are some amazing incentives for DorkX. They're trying to raise $5,000. So for every $500 on that path, Kelly will make another ASMR video. At $2,000, Kelly's going to run One Ring Strider Edition, which is going to be like a single player Aragorn game, which sounds hilarious. At $5,001, there'll be an audio only Dork Tales only fans for more mature stories if people want this, which is just amazing. I'm excited for that conceptually. And there are some amazing stretch goals, like maybe there will be a fall winter expo or a game in a hot tub. Oh my goodness, at 7,500. You could even maybe have Kelly working on a novel at 10,000 and limiting games to a reasonable number per week, which feels totally unattainable to me. I mean, that number is, but limiting Kelly's desire to run games doesn't feel attainable to me. $100,000, the ultimate stretch goal. Kelly will sleep for a month. And then also like rent a space for a studio, but like in particular, sleep for a month. If you wish to support these beans regularly, a really great way to do so is over on Patreon. And hey, we're almost at like 150 patrons on Dork Tales. Patreon, beans. We're almost at 150 beans. And at that point, I will run a monthly Star Trek Adventures role-playing game on this channel, which I am so stoked for. So if you want to see me literally in a Star Trek Voyager uniform with Vulcan ears doing an awful lot of this, you should probably join Patreon. That there's some more cool things than 180 for a game system voted on by patrons, an Avatar: The Last Airbender game at 200, and then maybe like a cool chat at 250 every single month of Patreon beans. There's so many. There's just so much stuff on Patreon. I get so many messages from them because I'm a patron supporter too of Dork Tales, right? And it feels like every 3 days, I get an update on some really cool Patreon content over there. So if you like being guilted into not missing out, because you should not miss out, you should think about checking out Dork Tales on Patreon. All right. Moderation is success. Y'all are amazing. Do you feel ready to dip back into talking about gender and identity and all of that chaos in tabletop gaming? You're excellent. Your face is excellent.
Your face is excellent.
I mean, thanks. I 3D modeled it myself.
Yeah, I'm also really impressed with your hand that you actually have able to do the. I don't know why it's so unsettling. It's brilliant, but also
is it that I suddenly have a hand? Ooh. I could have two if I am really careful in positioning and I don't interrupt my thing.
VTuber avatars having like articulated hands.
Mhm.
I don't know how I feel
Well,
about
being
this.
a VTuber avatar
The
with
future
articulated
is
hands
now.
is an integral part of my sense of gender and personhood. It is not, but I wanted to segue back in the direction of the
It
topic.
sounded
Totally fine if it
accurate.
was.
Like,
I mean, it could be. It could be. Who knows?
We're in a new
Who
era.
knows?
It's cyberpunk.
Mhm.
Cyberpunk is heck. Yeah.
I thought the cyberpunk would be cooler though. We just have oceans
We
on
only got
fire
the
and dumb
dystopian
space
part
men.
of
No, right?
cyberpunk.
The
And
most
all this
boring cyberpunk
proprietary
dystopia.
technology, like just watch. I'll get like a like an update to my like brain like implants, and it'll be like, oops, you're it's no longer supported. Get a new one. It's like, well, I haven't even finished paying off the last one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what you
At the
said
same
isn't
time,
even out
though,
of. Let's yeah.
I feel like sick ass cyber intestines. Like, let's go. No more colitis.
just-
Bring it on.
I would just like my chemicals to work right. That's all I'm asking for, please.
Right. Yeah. I feel like the cyber version would probably still be pretty buggy and scuffy. All right. So gender and identity in tabletop gaming. We've talked a little bit about what a queer story is as it relates to tabletop games. We talked a little bit about the appeal of tabletop gaming to queer people. So while those people are, perhaps interested in joining tabletop games, if you were to be like a DM or a player, are the things that you think you could do to make your tabletop gaming space feel more inclusive or even more accessible for queer, trans, two-spirited, gender nonconforming, and otherwise rat-attack beings?
Just really quickly,
Touches
like
hands?
right away, especially with new players, maybe people who haven't played games before, make it really clear that they're allowed to choose characters, identities, etc., outside of what they are currently presenting as. Like, hey, feel free to choose any gender or sexuality or whatever. Don't worry about that kind of stuff. Because new players can be really scared to like break out of that mold.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
And then finding comfort zone in that too, like figuring out whether I guess, because I feel like I could be wrong, because I usually, if I'm playing something that's not like femme presenting, I will lean non-binary for the most part. I don't think I've really played much in the way of more like, to be stuck with the gender terminology, more masculine type characters. And I acknowledge that there's issues with the language that we're using, because but I just kind of get the sense that, especially when you first get like trying that out, I think there's like a overcorrection or like a use of stereotypes that, as you work through that kind of internalized like preconceptions of what this thing is. And well, because we're talking a lot about doing it respectfully and like, but there's also got to be, I think there needs to be that room for people to learn and make those mistakes if they're just getting into it for the first time, so that they are able to feel welcome to it. I don't know how to articulate that better.
That totally makes sense.
It's intent.
Like,
Yeah, I think
Kelly
so
said.
too.
Kelly
Like,
said
people
earlier,
will-
it's the intent.
like people only really have, as a society, we only have what we see in the media really to express things that we don't ourselves represent. And so like if you're playing a mask presenting character, like what media do you have to play that? You have Ted from How I Met Your Mother, who tries to be a nice guy and gets mad when women don't want to date him. You have silent protagonist types from Game of Thrones who don't do anything and die a lot. And like there's it's really tough to be open to trying to represent those things with your lack of knowledge, and like being afraid that people will like slap your hand every time you try to. I think having like tools in, like setting up tools in place, especially if you're going in with the intent of like exploring something that you aren't used to, having tools in place where like if someone else sees something wrong, they can X card you and be like, hey, just FYI, or like have like check-ins afterwards to be like, hey, like how did you feel about that? Like I kind of felt awkward doing that. Did it come across that way? Like creating a space where what we were talking about was safety, which is like not only feeling safe that nobody's going to like intentionally trigger you in game, but feeling safe to ask the questions of like, how'd I do, y'all? And like not be attacked or not be like questioned unless you're coming in as an asshole, which again, stop and get away from me.
I mean, I think that's such a challenging thing to do. I really love the discussion of like there being tools and stuff like that to help with it, because I really think like that I feel like we're onto something here. Like I think tabletop gaming is an amazing spot for people to explore their gender and their identity. And yeah, there totally can be missteps in that, or there can be situations that feel like they're uncomfortable or they're unexpected or stuff like that. And I think having tools to manage that makes tons of sense. I love the X card. I want to have a whole conversation about tools, but I feel like that might be a different panel. But maybe we can ensure that we have some room for more of them either here or later in this topic too, because I think like tools and some structure to sort of like, and so people can go somewhere else instead of going like, oh, I need to pause this. We can go, oh, we have this tool, we have the X card, or we have this blackout, or we have this thing I can lean on, so I can stop this thing right in this moment, and then we can circle back on it and touch base. Can be so helpful in mitigating harm in the table. And sorry, I see two hands. I think I saw Amy first, and then Natasha.
Yeah, super quick. I just want to drop the tabletop titties consent checklist. If like in the chat, I know we brought it up like in the last panel, but just reminding again that like, yeah, if you are having discussions about like what you want to have in your game, whether or not these are like discussions of like homophobia or like what these topics are, and going over that with your players at a session 0, and or being able to update them as you go through play if you learn new things. So just I love that resource. I love it.
Thank you. That's awesome. I really appreciate it. And sorry, Tasha, that you were going to say something.
My point was just that, feeling comfortable in like, if you catch yourself kind of being like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this anymore. Like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that or said that, or maybe this is kind of not where I want this character to be going because it's feeling kind of like, not quite right. Just being willing to be like, hey guys, I'm just going to switch it into this direction, or just stop doing it, and you don't even have to bring it up, just do something different. But also like modeling for other players too, like, hey, I'm actually not doing that anymore, like if someone else brings it up kind of thing, like I'm leaning more towards this now because I didn't feel like that was working for the character. And then other players will also feel more comfortable in looking at what they're doing and being like, oh, I can just change it if it's not feeling appropriate anymore, let's do that. And it doesn't have to be like a big cancel kind of moment. It can just be like, let's just change and do differently.
And that's a skill that I think that you kind of have to learn to develop. I from my experience, it doesn't always come intuitively, and it can feel really uncomfortable at first learning it, but it comes with practice, and especially if you have someone modeling
and openness
for
at
you.
the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also on that note, like
my brain's like 4 directions at once on that alone. Sorry, go ahead, Tasha.
Like if someone at your table, whether you're the GM or just another player, is doing something that maybe you're finding a problem, talk to them privately instead of bringing it up in front of everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Unless it's
unless it's something really major that like you need to like stop happening in your game.
Like the cards,
which is very much where
people,
like an X tool or something can
some people use
yeah.
like amber
if something is being
light,
actively harmful to someone versus maybe you shouldn't do this one because here's some reasons.
Yeah, that sounds a little bit like sort of a call-in approach instead of a call-out approach, if that makes sense. So instead of going, hey, this person did harm, reaching out and being like, hey, this, like to that individual, or maybe to the DM and then that individual, and trying to do it that way instead of putting them on the defensive immediately.
And on the spot in front of the group. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Secret messages in chat. Secret message activity.
You can tell
done.
We always quiet at the same time, huh?
I sent feedback on that insight roll that you did. So go ahead and.
I mean, I rolled like a 3, so.
Yeah. They're fine. Don't worry about it.
The brick has emotions. I love emotional bricks. All right. I definitely want to make sure we have a little bit of space to discuss like our history of sharing our identities and connections and stuff like that with tabletop gaming if we want to. I don't want any of you to feel like you have to. This is a spot where I'm also happy to put myself on the spot first. I don't feel like I need to do that right now. But I feel like for me, it's very much a big part of how I explored my identity and sort of leaned into who I authentically was, and even like tested the water with my friends, like some of these people, right? And I know even from our first conversations here that is not the only story. And I wonder if there's stuff there that's like that people want to ensure is shared.
Yeah.
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 Yee.
Well, do you want to go first, Cal? And then it sounds like maybe Kelly next.
Yeah, I can do that.
Sure.
I'm gonna throw out just a blunder that I did in like gaming when I was storytelling one time, just to throw out there that like people can make mistakes, and like it's usually the person that made the mistake that feels the worst about it. But I had a non-binary player exploring their identity in a game, and it's like, okay, well, in this kind of like mountain town, maybe they've got like bathhouses. Oh, I know. Because this character's kind of like gender fluid, I'll like that them choose the boy, the blue or the pink bathhouse changing like area or whatever. And they're like, no, it's like they're non-binary, and like you kind of put me on the spot by asking. And I'm like, oh fuck. And if I hadn't thought of that much about it, I would have just been like, they're just communal. It's like hot tub. Why make a blue side and a pink side? Why not just, and I would have done that anyway. So I overthought that dumb like situation, being like, ooh, I'll like let them choose. And it's just like, no, this is just extra awkward now. And I'm like, yep, that
do
was
you
dumb.
feel there's that there's a good approach to like rectifying something like that if it comes up?
Exactly. Just like being aware of when people are uncomfortable, whether they're like in their voice, or if they literally have like there's some literal like red or yellow or X cards, like Kelly had said, or just been like, oh no, I don't really want to talk about bathroom issues and my gender. And it's just like, oh shit. I didn't even mean that, right? And it's just being like open, like up to letting people interrupt you and being like, oh no, okay, yeah, you know what, I was dumb, it's just one big bathhouse hot tub like thing. There you
Yeah.
go do a
And I mean,
cannonball.
I'm hearing a little bit of a willingness to retcon and change something that you'd originally put into
Because
play.
what are you
in the
there for
RCG?
if you're like trying to get elevate everyone that's there, right? Make them feel like heroic and like cool. It also means like, oh, I made a mistake, actually this happened, or actually no, this isn't how this like works. And so just being willing to go, oop, I derped, by thinking one step ahead of myself and trying to be accommodating, and then I ended up being insulting. But
which can
yeah,
happen.
yeah.
But
And
I
so
mean, it
that's my
sounds like it.
blunder.
Yeah.
I still remember it like to this day. I still remember the cringe. If you can't think of the times you were cringe, then it probably means that you're not like growing as a person, right?
Yeah, but at what point can you stop that? What are the tools in place to lay in bed at night, forgetting all of the cringe things that you did in life, just so you can sleep?
I see.
Have you considered overriding it with all of the good things you've done and thinking about those
No,
instead?
I don't
no.
remember that.
Oh,
May I
That's really
suggest?
That's not how brain work.
And like
May I
really good
suggest-
advice.
That's what
So I think
that way.
we have a
No.
million amazing questions from chat. I want to make sure we get a chance to go through too. But I do want to continue on this topic first. So hang on. I think in my little secret queue over here, I think Ivy, you were next for sharing stuff. If you wanted to share stuff about your personal.
It's actually
things.
go hand in hand with the question that somebody asked me of, can I explain the flag that is behind me? For those who don't know, this is the straight ally flag. I am not straight. This flag is actually reminiscent from when I was not fully out. I had this in the background of all of my streams. I came out 3 years ago. and knew I was gay and bisexual very, very much well before that. But as a lot of us may experience, had some religious parents and was in a very religious, homeschooled small town of 3,000 people and was unable to come out. Moved, came out 3 years ago or so, and so I do have a bisexual flag. It's just in the other room at the moment, but this is reminiscent of that. But this is the straight ally flag that came out in the early 2000s, and so this was the way I could get away with letting everybody know that I was an ally without being officially out. So I wanted it to let everybody know that that's what that is. I experienced, I was put into a very loving and supportive community in the TTRPG world, and that's when I was able to officially come out. But yeah, that's what that is.
That's really amazing. I'm so glad that you were able to connect with such a supportive and loving community. That makes me really happy. I too was also an overly invested ally in high school for some reason that I would discover later.
Weird.
Oh,
I
interesting.
know I was very startled. I'm sorry, Kelly. I think you're next to Mickey. If you want to go ahead.
I was just zoning out off into the past. 3 years ago. You
Oh,
say.
no.
Interesting. What a timeline.
Right? Weird.
Weird.
Strange. Wonder why that is.
I went into the pandemic not like 4 months ago, coming out as he, they, and kind of exploring like fluidity or like the one that you're nothing. But regardless, I went in like coming out. I had been pans for like, I don't know, fucking ages. And then suddenly not having to mask, and then also having access to tabletop RPGs via the internet, and all my friends not going out anymore and wanting to play a lot of tabletop games. So it spiraled real quick. That was the tipping point of like, hey, guess what? Get to explore everything. It's funny, our titties seasons have sort of represented my own personal journey, because the first season I was like a guest character and my character was a guy, and then my second character was non-binary. My third character was explicitly trans, transitioning in the show, and now this season my character's a full-on lady. So it's been a fun little journey of that. And then there's like, I've come to the conclusion of a bunch of stuff that involves me going to the clinic and asking about questions and whatnot, that tabletop RPGs have let me actually come to terms with that. And I remember having a conversation with my my group at the end of the season where I was playing a trans character and being like, hey, guess what, y'all? I'm going to go see if I can get some HRT and inject that stuff right into my ass and see what's up. And it was like, I had always been passively exploring my gender, I thought, through tabletop RPGs, but it's one of those things where like, it was the same with like ADHD and autism. Like the moment I learned I had it, it's like glass breaking and everything floods out. And it's like, oh, that's why I was a weird, creepy gremlin in school. That's why. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's why.
That's why.
Was your table surprised when you came out like officially? Or were they like, well, you've been playing this character for a while, so like we kind of assumed?
Nobody that I have known in my life has ever once been surprised when I come out about anything.
Okay, great. Me too. Great. I just wanted to see if this was a general experience.
Excluding my family, but that's not the question.
That's
yeah.
Excluding that.
All of my friends have been like, I've inhaled and then said it, and they're like, oh yeah, of course. I'm like, oh, okay.
I got
so
that
yeah,
you were straight, so I feel bad.
You didn't know. So yeah, it's definitely like, I mean, we joke about how shitty the pandemic is, and guess what? It terribly is, but I always talk about how great it's been that people don't have to fucking mask anymore. And 3 years ago seems like a good timeline for having to start to embrace who you are and actually, start loving yourself through tabletops, RPGs, obviously, because that's the panel we're on.
and also maybe please mask in the physical mask way, but not in the emotional way.
I did that on Twitter. I was like, I'm so glad that people don't have to mask anymore. And then my partner was like, maybe you should rephrase that. And I was like, shit.
Yes. Oh dear.
Okay, but to be fair, you can be glad that like masking is not as required as it once was and still support when it's necessary.
I don't goof.
Like I'm happy
I
we
think
don't
the
have to wear a mask every day anymore. That's something that makes me happy, even though I did when it was necessary.
Mm.
Yeah.
All right, that's my story. Other people talk, so I
That's
cannot
fine.
feel awkward.
No, we're all awkward.
I mean, I'm happy to embrace the awkwards. I mean, like I came out probably. I always have to look this up. I came out like a week before Laura Jane Grace, so like 11 years ago. It's wild. And I sort of explored that first with many of the people here or on the channel because our crew wasn't like, I mean, it was very queer, but we didn't know that we were very queer. We were like secretly very queer. You know, it's like JoJo rules, right? Stand users all find each other, like queer and trans people all find each other. We just didn't know. And then we secretly had super cool death battles. Don't worry about it. But when I was coming out, I didn't know any other trans people. There wasn't really like an established trans community that I wanted anything to do with, unfortunately, in the location that I was living at the time. There weren't like a lot of resources or community or anything like that connected to tabletop gaming. And I was really, really nervous that my friends were not going to be here for it. And so I used tabletop games pretty intentionally, to be honest, to explore that a little bit. I remember playing a character who ended up like sort of switching bodies partway through. And it was, I think, intended to be a joke, but it just sort of turned into a running thing that just was the case. I remember playing a different gender at a table one day for an ongoing tabletop game. And even discussing with the storyteller a little bit of the reasoning for why and the intentions behind it, and sort of using that to gauge stuff. And I still remember the moment where one of my friends at the time, and I think Amy might remember this, but I don't want to say their name because they're not involved in the channel, because we all had little secrets that was the secret about our characters. And the only person, the whole friend group that I was out to at that point was the DM of that game. And they suggested, well, what if one of our secrets is that we're transgender? And my heart just like leapt out of my mouth. I could have just about died right then and there, but I didn't. And it turned out that person was actually like a really like massive trans ally and pretty queer themselves. But it was through like that game and exploring it and sort of like going through that sort of like, oh, this person, Bunny, is playing a different gender than before, and here's how that's going. Then I eventually came out to the group, and then so many other people came out after me. It was really, really amazing. But I was so scared that first time. And if it weren't for that DM being kind of open to that exploration and building a space that I felt safe to do that, I don't know, it could have taken me months longer to come out to these beings. So, yeah.
It's awesome.
Mm-hmm. But all right, we do have like a million awesome questions from chat that I want to go through. I'm really
I'm
sorry,
watching the
chat. We're
list.
too busy being gay dorks talking about gay dork things and our favorite gay colors.
Yeah, I've
They don't
copied
think
Does
them
they
anyone
know.
else
again.
want
so I
to?
don't lose them.
Yeah, I see them. Awesome, thank you.
I changed my color to
Before we
purple.
move on to that, any last
Mine's
minute
blue.
things folks want to be like, I really want to share this thing about my personal connection to queerness and trans and tabletop gaming. Okay,
For
forever hold
any
your peace. No, go
for
ahead.
any like cis or straight players or like whatever, again, it's intentions, might help you understand people to play something else, right? Like to go in, like, again, intentions. You're not going in it to be a stereotype or an ass, right? You're playing with friends. So like mix it up. And even if it's like you've always played like the white 30 something cis male protagonist of every action video game, maybe play a woman or an agendered like person or just like whatever, and see how you like it. And like maybe, I don't know, then you'll be able to relate, at least in like a game sense, that John, someone just wrote John Wick, but make it queer. Wow.
In our secret little panelist chat, just as a side note.
Yes,
I know
actually.
John Wick is definitely on my list of games to run.
Can we? Gene Wick. Gene Wick.
Jean Wick.
Jean Wick.
Great.
Jean.
Instead of just making it French.
Oh, Dork Tales is saying Jean
What's
Thick.
What's more
Ooh
I-
la
cool
la,
than being friends?
fancy
no.
pansy.
I know
Oh my goodness.
my next character. That's
Getting-
John.
That's it.
All right.
We can go on to the next
Tinker-
question. I
Tinkerbell
just
Willow
wanted to
gets
throw
into
that out
everything.
there.
I have a bad habit of writing jokes in chat. Like when we're streaming, I
I
write
do
Oh,
it
I
in
do it
too.
too. Absolutely.
Yeah, we do for sure.
I don't
I
want to
love
interrupt, but I want the
Me
joke to be in the
too.
world.
Yep.
Mhm.
No, that's the mood. I understand
All
completely.
right.
Yep.
So, one of the questions that we have is Dork Tales today transition story in our Shards of Nern game. How would you suggest doing that in a game of your own?
Mm.
I can kind of expand on that for a little bit of context if you would like.
Sure, yeah. I wasn't in that game, so I'd appreciate it. I mean, I
Okay,
watched
so
it,
in
but
that
some
one,
thing
so
behind
that
the
game has
scenes.
been running since 2018. Like we're on season 4, and one of the players ended up transitioning, and the character they were playing no longer felt. I'm interpreting somewhat. Felt that it matched who they were. They were no longer comfortable playing that character. The specifics aren't particularly important. The important part was that for their comfort, we wanted to do a transition for them in game so that the character, we weren't writing the character out. The character was still there. It was still the same person, but it was more accurate to who they were. And we did that by initially we sort of introduced, it was like we were in the characters were in the Feywild, and we encountered it was like an apple of gender switching, and that character ended up holding on to that, and through a combination of this apple of gender switching, because it wasn't a one-use item, it was you could basically cough it up, I guess, and then reuse. I don't remember this anyway. Basically it wasn't one use, and some high-level potions that were possibly expired and possibly would have made things a little more permanent, ended up making it so that she was able to transition the character, and it was awesome. And we got new art done for the character, and yeah. So that's how we handled it. And we basically was like, okay, we can't, I think there was originally going to be a bit of a time progression, so they kind of matched up with her own transition, but based on how the games worked out, we were like, okay, that actually isn't going to work, so we're just going to do it because that's more important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And my understanding is that she's really happy with it, and we just sort of, that's what it is. We removed that previous character's name off of everything. We replaced the art because you can buy t-shirts from the series, and all the stuff is now new name, etc.
That's awesome.
That sounds pretty awesome.
So yeah, how would you do it?
So our season was an isekai, so that was a good start.
Beautiful.
Incredible.
But the way that Shar set it up was that they asked each of us to come up with like a character story, basically, so that we could plan out like where we want to be in the beginning and where we want to be at the end. We have like 20 episode seasons, so it's a lot easier to have like overarching character stories. And mine was, I wanted my character to realize they were trans. And so pre-isekai, it's guy in a Zelda t-shirt and some cargo shorts. And I think at that point I was like, this is me, self-insert, here we go. And then immediately hitting the world, she was like completely uncomfortable like being in this body because she felt like almost guilty for liking it and thought they were being like creepy and like gross. So the entire season was me sort of like expressing feeling more comfortable, and not only feeling more comfortable like being in this body and not feeling like you're co-opting it, but like embracing it and then making it something your own by the end. And then Shar did something that fucked me over very emotionally at the end, which was we are all given the choice if we wanted to go back, but there was like a twist that like our bodies didn't exist anymore in that world, so they had to like recreate it. And so people were going back like a little bit taller or like stronger, a little bit baller.
No chronic pain.
And yeah, or like even in the world they could like make themselves look more like they do in the real world. And then Kelly was like, I could just go back, transitioned. And then I had this whole conversation. I was like, is that cheating? Like I feel like part of the experience is like going through it and transitioning, and like, and then all my friends were like, no, fuck that, it's magic, be happy. And I was like, oh God, all right, someone else start talking again. And
Mm.
telling Shar what I wanted my plan for my character to be allowed them to fuck me up in the end quite well. So I think like working with your DM, if that's something that you plan ahead of time, is great. But I think the gender apple is an incredible way of doing it if it's a surprise.
Gender apple is amazing. I feel
I
like
saw you
something that I'm
mime
picking up on
taking
both of
notes.
these. And Tasha, I see your hand up, so I'm gonna get to you next. So I'm gonna just like 2 seconds. Something I'm hearing in both of these is that in both of them, it seems like there's a player taking the lead and sort of in charge of that story, but it's not being done to them, but they're collaborating with the storyteller to tell that story. It's not being sprung on them. It's not an ambush. Suddenly you're trans. It seems like it's a narrative that has been collaborated on, which feels like an important note to me. I'm sorry, go ahead, Tasha.
I wanted to say that one way, as I know one of the questions was about bringing this into maybe players who aren't already who are open to these ideas but aren't intentionally exploring them, is that I've been in games where the rebirth mechanic to bring a character back is that you don't get to choose your body when you come back. So maybe, like it's random, like what race are you, what, species, what gender, all of this kind of stuff. And it can really be like, presuming your audience is on board with this, like your players, a really easy, fun kind of way that doesn't make it so, I guess it doesn't have to be like such a huge deal. It's just like, hey, this is just what happens to you. Now roll with it. Like, this is your character now, like have fun.
I like that. Yeah. Just kind of randomly give them a.
Because that way the player doesn't have to make this big decision of I'm going to do this thing now. It's like you died. So here we go.
I actually
Although I think they should
saw-
still definitely agree to it.
I saw
Yes, like your players have to be on board. Like, are you comfortable exploring a character where you don't get to choose these things?
I actually
I'm sorry,
saw
go ahead.
a person who used that same concept of regenerating after you've died to turn into a new character that was pre-planned and has new art and everything else. It was a really beautiful thing. I sent it to a couple of other of my trans friends who I was like, what do you feel about this? And they were very excited that somebody would use it in that way, to use that death as a rebirth in their character. And I think that's really beautiful. The character is stunning. Like they feel a lot more comfortable with it now. And I think that's great.
Putting the dead in dead name. Let's go.
Exactly.
Again,
All
as an
right.
ADHD non-binary person, grab bag of identity sounds incredible.
Identity. I mean,
It's like a bag
you
of
got the
tricks, like the
infinite
bag of-
regenerating gender
Yeah.
apple. Mhm. Wait, hang on. Sorry, we're being sent a link that will apparently make us 50% gayer or straighter. I'm curious for
Uh-oh.
what that link is, but I'm gonna read that.
Oh, I know exactly what that is.
Oh,
Yep.
oh, hang on. I think we lost Ivy.
Oh no.
Oh, no.
Oh no, did Ivy click the link
no.
and then got absconded with?
Oh, did
Oh no. Wow.
Got too gay and
the
broke
link
the internet.
struck
Oh.
another victim. Too
Too
gay to
gay.
exist here. Welcome
Ivy,
back.
did you go too gay? You clicked it and went
I
too
did go to gay.
and-
Yeah, I did.
Understandable.
Did you break the gay
Understand
tricks?
myself.
I did. I did.
Okay.
I mean,
So just
God.
we have a reasonable bit of time still, but I do want to power through the questions just in case there's more of them coming up. So the next one in the QE list that I have is from Coldray, which is how much gender, oh my gosh, Shaki's moving. How much gender exploration did you do in game to discover how you felt about your choices? So I think that was to do with sort of like exploring like different options and that sort of thing. And it's like, how long did it take to sort of figure out how that felt? I mean, for me, it was like immediate. It's like 30 seconds in. Oh, wow, this is weirdly appealing for some reason. But I don't know that I really processed that immediately.
I mean, like I said, my new character this season is a full-on lady with big hat energy, so embrace that pretty good.
Sorry, with big what energy?
With big hat energy.
Big hat energy. Oh my goodness. Yes, I'm here for it.
I think for myself, I got a lot of that out through writing when I was younger. So by the time I got to RPGs, I'd kind of already sorted most of that out for myself.
Okay. Yeah.
the first character I played on stream was gay. Like right out the gate. She was gay, and eventually that transitioned to bisexual and that kind. I was already very aware of my own sexuality, but that as I played her, I was like, she's not just gay. I see now. This is where I'm most comfortable with, is people of both gender or any identity is a little more comfortable for me. So I played her for 2 years, and have experienced a lot of other gay characters that I've gotten to play since then. But straight up, I went out the gate with a gay character, and that's true.
Out the
Continued
gate?
through out the gate.
Oh my gosh.
We need a pun counter.
I mean, that's not a bad idea. It'd be fun to do.
Yeah, that's just right out of playing and starting as DMing. I had gay characters.
Yep.
But it sounds a little bit like how that character, it's like the choice you made as that character and how that character came together did change a bit over time.
It
as
did.
you embodied them more.
It did. I'm gonna be straight up. She was a tiefling. Like, I should have known.
I
I
mean.
started off with a tiefling. I actually started off DMing, but she was the first character I got to play on a stream at the start of everything, and so that was how I explored that. Is I got to play her on stream and grow from there.
That sounds really awesome. And I feel like it's kind of like writing, right? Like your characters can surprise you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, I see both an Amy and a Cal have unmuted, so I want to make sure both of you have space to say things if you want to.
I was just gonna say, so in terms of like the gender side of things, like I've mostly played characters that were like femme representing or presenting and or non-binary or agender, or just that whole concept just was not relevant to who they were as a person, and they just dealt with it in the context they existed, and it was not really an issue for them. And I kind of enjoy that a lot, just not having it be brought up. So
I think that's something we haven't really touched on, which is like using games to explore asexuality and agender and that kind of thing as well.
And also, I am primarily asexual, and I am very open about that. But in terms of, so for characters, if I'm having a character have a romance in a game, and I'll probably talk about that in the sexuality and like romance and like that whole panel later. But most of my characters end up being some combination of bisexual or pansexual or asexual, or just there. And if they do happen to be in a cis het appearing relationship, that is just at that moment, and it is never a permanent situation.
Does anyone else have so much trouble when they're playing a character with who's either straight or gay or something specific, and then you're as a player, you're just like, oh fuck, but what if I'm attracted to all these other characters in the game? Fuck, no.
I professionally DM, and that's all I do really. I mostly DM. I'm strictly a forever DM by choice. No, all of my characters are romanceable. I don't care what gender, who you're playing. Everyone is romanceable.
Like The Sims.
Yeah. Or I'm playing Fire Emblem, earlier Fire Emblem games, and being
children.
angry that I can't romance certain characters if I pick a certain gender, and I'm just like.
Yeah, it's physically impossible for me to not accept any of my PC's advances as an NPC. I'm just too receptive. I'm this is clearly what you want to be exploring. This monster is now fuckable. I don't.
Yeah. Greg the Slime has never had a better date.
Good quote.
Yeah,
This monster is now fuckable.
I think one of the characters I had the most fun playing though was my plasmoid barbarian, who was an ooze who did not understand humanoid anything, and just essentially agender, and just they didn't get it, and but they tried, because they sure did write a whole lot of wording here. They sure wrote novels that were full of smut between humanoid characters. I definitely needed an editor to make sure that it was.
What humanoid characters could that have been? It's fine. How dare you? Angry elf noises.
But I had so much fun with that. Yeah.
All right.
That's
So
actually really cool.
before we move on sort of on the idea of like how long it took to sort of come to conclusion on your choices and games, I want to make sure we got more room for that too. I'm just checking in on time. So is there more that folks want to share on that topic, or should we move on to the next question from chat?
Go with
We good. We should keep it going. I just want to make sure we get through all of them because there are lots in here. I really think you're really going to enjoy answering. So
If we go long, we'll just bully Kelly into giving us more time. There's
you know
more
what?
of us
That's
that-
true. I mean, trans rights means this panel can go as long as I want it to, right? Legally,
That's how it works.
probably.
I
I
don't
think
make the
that's,
rules.
that's
That is
one of
the
those
law.
bills in the
Rules.
Canadian government, probably.
Until the
Yeah.
next
Check the
panel
rules.
gets mad at us and kicks us.
How could they? How could they? We're too powerful. We're too powerful
know.
and cute, right? Like it's amazing. Okay.
That's true.
So
The
Storm
next
Shanks
panel is big bad evil guys. So if anybody's going to get mad at the trans people, it's going to be the big bad evil guys.
How do you know I'm not a big bad evil guy?
I'm gonna
Oh,
say
that is
it's
Valid,
there.
right?
too
We're all
funny.
secretly on our villain arc right now. Okay, speaking of villain arcs, no, not at all. Stormshanks has asked, oh no, the chat scrolled more. Stormshanks has asked that they've heard mention of the gender switching corset artifacts. Are there any other artifact magic items that you found useful for helping to explore identities?
I kind of touched on that with the apple. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think we did that
I've
one.
seen one really common one that I've seen is like a body swap kind of plot. I've never really been that into
Oh,
that, but I know
in
some people
Dark-
enjoy it.
In Dark
There's-
Souls, there's a coffin you get into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A sex change coffin.
There's a sex coffin. It just
I love it.
That's so convenient.
Yeah.
yeah.
Man, our
I-
world
that's the
sucks.
thing in
It's
the
so
game.
boring.
You just
I've
get in this
seen-
creepy coffin and you're like, uh-oh, what's happening? And it's the sex change coffin.
Were we just talking about how queer vampires are?
Okay.
And about
I
dead
mean-
names. So I mean, if you're getting in I feel like there's a couple things here that are like,
There's layers to
yeah,
that.
layers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen a wig, like a homebrew item that was a wig of drag, where it would give you a drag persona. So like, there's that. There's also
Like a magical
supplement that
girl
was made.
transformation.
Yeah, like you put on this
That's-
wig
that's
and it can't be
amazing.
removed, like it can't be dispelled or anything
Your
else like
magical
that.
drag
You
You can run in
transformation.
heels. And
Yes, like,
Whoa,
and I thought that was
that's
really
not
cool.
Oh my
valid.
god,
What
I'd
are
be
you
so
doing?
much more like elegant and dexterous if I did that. Oh my god.
I know there's also Adventuring with Pride, which is a supplement I've DM'd, made by the lovely Jack, who also has a bunch of homebrew items in there. I'm not sure as to the extent of them, but there is quite a few. I've only run one of the one-shots, but Adventuring with Pride probably has a couple of really cool ones.
So I wonder if there's something that we could link in chat if we have the technology.
It's very good. It's very fun. I
Maybe.
ran it for Pride Month a couple of times, and it was a lot of fun.
That does sound like a lot of fun. Well, I gotta check it out too.
There's trail
For-
snails.
For vampire, I've always wanted to play a Zamichi who makes money doing gender affirming surgery. And I feel like even if you're not doing that as a PC, you could 100% do that as an NPC. Because there's gotta be vampires out there who want to transition, and having a like Lovecraftian monster vampire do it for you seems like the perfect way.
Right?
I mean,
Just
us
Cronenberg
Toreador
it.
exist. We gotta get HRT and GRS all the time. Let's
That's
go.
right.
Yeah, we're allied with Smeezy. No, I'm fully here for that idea. I have wanted to do that for so long. It's like just this one like really chill trans healthcare provider, Smeezy, who just does like weirdly good services. I would love that.
I just
Okay.
want a safe place to play Zamichi. No one will let me.
I know, right? Oh,
wanna be
you're
a-
a horrible flesh crafting monster. Whatever. It's fine.
just wanna be
It's gender
Cronenberg-y.
affirming.
Well, let me do it.
Okay, any more thoughts on magical and related items connected to exploring identities?
I think
It's
just
a bit of a
final
big
point
question.
on
for
that
the
is
next
just you
one.
can always make up your own if there aren't any that are really readily available. Just it's your game, make it up. Do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the next question. This one's actually from Angel Tail. Hi, Angel Tail. Angel Tail is one of my mods. I really adore them. They are wondering about if we have any advice from peeps. Oh no, for folks about how to introduce more gender-sensitive or gender-expressive ideas
can't
into
type when someone's
predominantly
reading the
straight
question.
spaces. Yeah, sorry. Whenever y'all type in the chat, in our secret, not your chat, not the Twitch chat, our secret internal chat, it scrolls my question list all the way to the top. I'm getting bamboozled all the time. But okay, so they're asking for advice on how to bring more like gender sensitive or gender expressive ideas to predominantly like non-queer, a very straight RPG kind of space. That's an amazing face.
I feel that face. I feel like just make that make it very normal. Like it,
Have
Yes, this
NPCs
might
who
also be
are
in the role of
queer
as a player.
and have them be clear about that in their interactions. Give the player characters a chance to explore.
Yeah. I think
just
that's
like make it
basically
normal in
like,
the world.
wow. Especially if you've
Mm.
been invited to a table where it's all like cishet people, like, I don't know, just start being gay and do crimes. And if they don't embrace you, then it probably wasn't the table for you.
And with the addendum that if it is safe to do so.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
No.
absolutely.
No, I mean, I think this question is definitely like, if you have a table where everyone is on board for this, how do you actually make it happen too, right? Like,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because people can be totally open to something and still like too scared to be the first one to do it.
Yeah.
Gay
Mhm.
chicken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The opposite of gay.
Oh, what an awful game that we played in middle school.
Oh, geez.
Oh my gosh, right? Hey, I mean, I did gay chicken right up into my like almost mid-20s. Come on. I was like an expert at it.
I think we've talked a lot about like the safety tools and stuff that like once you get into it are good ways to handle it. Like, why are you doing it? Go in with love, X cards and stuff like that. But yeah, I think definitely like one of y'all is gonna have to pull the trigger if you want to do it. Like,
Mhm.
there's like a relatively good chance that other people at the table want to do it. And again, if you feel comfortable with your group, at least bringing it up, just
And you
go
can
ahead
start
and do
small, right? Like little
Mhm.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in a
And-
I'm in a group, and make your icons, and I'm nebulous about the PC's gender, and they're all like, well, based on the icon, they kind of look like, is your character like a man or a woman, or, and I'm like, why don't you ask them?
You don't need to know.
Maybe I don't even know.
Oh.
I mean, I think Tasha, I think you highlight something that feels very important to me is that it doesn't have to be all at once. You can start with small stuff. And I like the idea of introducing tools or something like that as sort of a bit of a safer, like because of course this feels scary to be like, hey, table of straight friends, I happen to be gay and I want more queerness at this table. That is several steps in one. But if you're talking about, hey, I've been, watching this cool Dork Tales or this cool Tabletop Titties or this cool other amazing podcast, and they have these like tools that they use to try to make sure everyone's having fun. And they're doing this work on making the space more inclusive and welcoming for like folks who are racialized or folks who are queer or folks who are othered in all these kind of ways. And I kind of want to try some of that. How do you feel about making the space a little bit more inclusive? Are there tools that you're open to trying? Here are some ideas. That can sort of like take it away from being about you and about this idea of building a more inclusive space. And then from there, maybe you can start introducing some queerness if you want to. They might, of course, immediately be like, why do you care? But I think if they're resistant to making the space more welcoming to other people, like other folks here said, maybe it's not a table that is welcoming to you.
For me, regardless of the resistance to the table, like even if I thought it was a totally safe space, like I would never feel comfortable saying something like that. But what I would say is something like, hey, I want to
I'm a
base my
nerd.
next character around X person from like TV, movie, book, whatever,
Mm.
who happens to be queer or whatever. And then it's like, that's such a safe way to bring it in. Cause like, this is a really cool character. This is a side note on that character, but now it's a part of my character.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Y'all
Like a
ever see
touchstone.
Interview with a Vampire?
That one's going a little hard. That's not a side note.
What? We're all just all the vampires in that are
We're just vampires.
they're just
Yeah, we're
vampires.
just vampires.
So we're
What's
playing
going on?
we're playing a vampire game and you want everyone to be straight? I'm sorry, what? I don't understand. This does not compute. What?
Are you
It's
damn
historically
right? Because
inaccurate.
2010.
Here, let me list the things I like about the character. Blonde, fit, shirtless all the time, has another shirtless guy next to him. What's going on, guys? He's a vampire.
Like,
Mhm.
They eat the
All right.
rich. They
Yeah.
Mhm, yeah, that's helpful. But I guess unfortunately they don't only eat the rich. Ugh, it's just the worst.
oh,
vampires,
Sometimes
blurs.
rats.
All right.
What's
Do
the
any more
big
thoughts on introducing like queerness into a table that it is new to? All right. So we have a question from Bongmaster. The whole mod squad's here. Hi, Bongo. How would you tackle a character who doesn't understand sort of like queerness in general and their interaction with a character who is queer?
Wait, a player that
right
doesn't
away,
understand?
I would
I
say
think a
that
character. I think it's portraying someone who's, you know,
Oh.
like maybe they were raised in a society where like homophobia doesn't exist and they're curious why this person's identifying this way, or maybe they've just, you know, lived under a rock their entire life and they're like, oh my gosh, a person with a gender. I'm not entirely sure on that one.
that's kind of where I was going at it from. Like, you really have to like establish like, why has this person never experienced it? And if they've never experienced it, have they also had cultural ideas about it without experiencing it? Because you can be like someone in a culture who's just never, this is just not a thing that's talked about, versus a culture where it's talked about, but it's not done. And those are two very different places to come from. Because even in a culture where it's just not a thing that anyone thinks about, it's the kind of thing that most children will be like, oh, I'm going to marry my friend so and so when I grow up. And it's like, oh no, you don't do that, right? Like it's going to come up in most people's childhoods as a question. So like, what happened when that came up in that person's life? How was it dealt with by their culture, and what ideas did they bring from that?
Yeah, and I guess like this feels like it's very connected to earlier questions that we had about like representing queerness at the table. It's like, what kind of story are you trying to tell by representing a character who's never encountered a queer person before? Like where are you going with this? What are your goals there? Because this isn't a person that exists, right? That this is a concept that's being put into play as part of a collaborative role-playing kind of experience, right? So
That's
like
well
checking in
said.
on the reasons for that, which I'm sure are very, very positive, and sort of using that as the guide and the touchstone for it, and maybe even connecting with the rest of the table around that feels like a good approach to me. But generally, I'm not really sure.
And maybe if you want to play a character like that, bring it up in a session 0. Don't just immediately like go into the game. You're 8 sessions in and this has come up and you're throwing this at the table. Make
Yeah,
sure you
that's
discuss
big.
it. Like
That's a lot, huh?
yeah.
Again, it's a very
I don't know how
prominent
I would take
idea.
yeah, I don't know how I would take if suddenly this person's like, oh yeah, I've never met a queer person in my life. I have no idea what this is. I'd be like, okay, that's something
Is there
that
a
we have to
secret
talk about.
handshake? Or
Makes me wonder there's
Yeah.
a fundamental lack of understanding of what that word actually means, and they just thought it meant something else completely different. Because that could
Yeah.
be pretty funny if they thought it meant something very
Yeah.
different.
It
You
can
guys
be
have
done
been
well.
saying this
Just
the
like
whole
a character
time.
who knows what it is but has never like been friends with someone like that, then
Yeah.
that's a different situation. Again, like,
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
so what culture did you grow up in that, you know, no one around you was comfortable enough to talk about this? Because statistically there was probably someone. So like what,
Sure.
you know, what was that culture like, and how did that affect this person?
Just make sure you're communicating with everyone at the table if you're going to play something like that, or at least bring up the idea even before you hit the session 0 to your DM or to your GM, depending on what you're playing. That's important.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel like
character is
there's
different
very
than the
much a
player. Yeah.
yeah, I
That's
feel there's
sort of
very
like-
much a risk with this sort of concept. Sorry, to put a queer person on the spot and force them to justify their identity and experiences to you in game. And oh my gosh, don't do that.
Yeah, that's sort of like exploration of like a player doesn't understand queer people, so I'm going to use my tabletop character to understand them. Seems very problematic. The only time I could ever really see this kind of character working is if you yourself are queer and you want to explore like, what if I play a character that represents my family and I can just like live vicariously through a character discovering me? I could see that working. Again, it's also that's almost like borderline trauma dumping a little bit, but I don't know.
I think in any game where you've already established like maybe these ideas exist, like not everyone in this world is comfortable with queer people, or maybe they are, but it's not very popularized at this point in the culture. Like, I think it's totally fine to have a character like this if it fits in the world and if your players are comfortable with it.
Which I'm
But
guessing
I
is
think it
pretty much
definitely requires like the consent at the table and the desire to be part of that story.
which is the key part of any of it, is pretty much you can explore pretty much any subject if everybody is on board and consenting to it. So
yeah.
I'm picturing like somebody coming into this with a character and like on session 8, they're an android and they're like, what is homosexual? And you're like, oh, well, like, you know, they're attracted to the same like gender. What is gender? Good question.
Yeah, see, that
We're
could
not
be
the
fun.
Wikipedia for. We're
Yeah,
not
how
All of
far
you
back
who
don't they
read
understand? What is flesh?
What
Total-
is biology?
Side note, I just remember playing just completely like semi-related, unrelated, playing a game of Joke Boat on Jackbox, and you know how they like make you have those taglines for your comedian. Well, anyway, one of the ones that were, like generated for me was "Who ordered gender?" I was sick. I did not have a voice, and every time it came up, I would scream it. And it would be this rasping, like just. Oh God. That is a formative memory, apparently, that I will never leave me. Sorry.
That
Ordered
is amazing. Okay, so on this question, is there more that folks want to share? I'm realizing we're getting kind of close to the time limit, and I want to make sure we've got time to get through the remaining 2 in my list. There might be more in the list after this, but so far where I'm scrolling down, I see 2 more. And then give us time to do outros and talk about any other amazing stuff we want to make sure is shared. So any more on that one? Okay, awesome. So I'm really hoping I'm going to get this name right. Please let me know if you're still here in chat if I get it totally wrong. But this is a question from Curl Temius, which is, can you talk about building in and normalizing queer characters, lore, and pronouns into your GMing?
Just feel free to correct yourself when you get the pronouns wrong. It's like, oh fuck, I established this character as a they. They.
Done that.
I mean, I guess I have pronouns as part of my notes on NPCs. Sorry, go ahead.
I still will occasionally miss it and then have to come back to it.
And exactly.
Normalize owning up to you misgendering your own characters. It's okay. We all make mistakes and trip over it, but make sure you fix it. That doesn't mean it's not okay to go back and fix it, even though they're NPCs. It's important to at least acknowledge that you're wrong. It's okay. We all make mistakes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Also, I don't know if anyone else has this issue. I don't know if it's an ADHD thing or what, but if I am looking at somebody and I'm trying to talk about someone else, I will get my wires crossed, and it is the worst, most embarrassing thing, because it's like, I know what I'm talking, like, I know this. Why did I do this? I'm looking at somebody entirely different, or like, I'll like use, I don't know, probably not the wrong name, but like, it's the sort of thing where you're like, I don't know, my parents will go through like all the names and then use the dog's name. And it's like, you know, you're talking about your child, like which one you mean. You do not mean the dog. You have literally called me by the dog's name several times. Like, this is not.
I think that's a human thing. Just the Rolodex of names that you go to until you get to the right one.
Seems like, yeah.
Gender sometimes.
They, them, they, yeah.
Just the Rolodex of genders you go through until you get the right one.
I think we've kind of talked about this where it's. Oh,
Sorry, cat excitement.
yeah. No, I think we kind of talked about this where it's just normalize having those types of people in your worlds. It's just a general thing of.
That's what I was gonna say. Just do the minimal effort to, because the question was, can you talk about building in normalizing queer characters, the lore, the pronouns, or whatever? Make the queen a queen. You know, like make you know, a blacksmith like make it a big burly dude who's like married to a big burly like woman, or a big burly like man. Just let women be strong, let men be like weak, value like people's lives, like just put an effort into like doing that. And it's just, that's how you like end up normalizing it, because we all have different spheres, but there are people I've
not
worked
every
with.
NPC is a white Hispanic male.
Yeah, and there are people I have worked with that like have never met a trans person, and I'm like, well, funny you think that, but you probably have. And so it's just like
everywhere.
No one in my generation was trans, actually.
That's all.
It was invented 3 years ago. We've established.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think Kelly, I think is next to my queue, and then I actually have something to say if you don't say the exact same thing.
My point, because I was also a victim of this, where like I wasn't so much as like making everybody the same character. I just wasn't describing people. I was like, yeah, you go to the blacksmith there's chipping away. But as you start incorporating more diverse people in your game, also look up how to describe them in non-problematic ways. People don't like their skin being referred to as a food. People don't like being called a very masculine looking woman or whatever. Like, look up the right words to describe the diverse people that you're including. It is work, but ultimately, hey, your vocabulary gets real cool and awesome, and words good come out of mouth hole.
Well said.
So I feel like for me, when it comes to building and normalizing queer characters, pronouns stuff into GMing, sorry, we're getting scrolled again while I'm trying to read questions. I
It was something that Dork Tales Kelly just said. He was a masculine looking man with flesh like Cool Whip. Cool Whip.
Okay. So hang on. Serious answer though is that I feel like normalizing it starts before you're into the narrative. Like I think it starts at the table. I think it starts with maybe your group starts sharing pronouns when introducing their characters to each other and maybe themselves to each other. I think it starts there, not with the DM going hey, this character is being described differently than otherwise. Please catch on to this. I think it has to be pretty transparent. I think it should be pretty clear what your intentions are, especially in case you don't get up. And it should be like everything else with role-playing in my mind, pretty collaborative. Transparent. You're such a dork.
The whole point of typing the joke is so it doesn't interrupt.
It's too late. I'm a streamer. I'm reading 2 chats at once just by instinct. This is how it goes.
Here's me describing myself with my
but really,
I
feel like it has to start before the narrative does. And sorry, go ahead, Amy.
Oh, just that I'm pale mayonnaise in complexion.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I
What
blend
if my
into my
world
walls.
doesn't have mayonnaise? What
It's a
then?
bad world.
Amazing.
What?
as
No.
one of the
No.
persons who
I don't
did
want to
this
live
show,
in that world.
in
I'll live in
mayonnaise,
that
I would
world.
hate that.
As an incredibly white person, you can't take away one of my major food groups.
You can't take away our food. Oh.
It's like the one food I won't eat. I'm gonna be honest.
That's valid. More for me to differentiate in.
You're
Okay. Any more thoughts on normalizing queer characters, lore, pronouns, stuff? And I'm so sorry, Callie, I didn't mean to talk over you.
No, that's okay. I was just making mayo jokes.
Understandable. So any more thoughts on that? I got one more question in the lister on here. And I
I
think
just
it's a big,
wanted to
broad question.
quickly piggyback onto what Kelly was saying there. Don't say, oh, and the black the smith, he's like a gay black man. And it's just like, why would you describe that? How do we know that he's gay?
I need to know how we knew that. Like,
How did
they
we
have a pride flag on the wall?
And that's the
it's on
thing.
the
It's
glitter.
like
I will know.
Let me describe what he's
person's-
doing real quick.
the person. It's the way he's holding that.
No, not
Wrong game.
But like it's be forgiving and try your best and be forgiving.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, so the next question, this one's also from Angel Tail. And it feels pretty broad to me. I'm not sure I entirely know all of that they're asking in it, but they're wondering if panelists have
I
ever
love this
introduced
question.
or come up with interesting / beyond the binary or wild and radical gendering or non-gendering systems in their stories, as part of
Yes.
the fiction.
Aliens,
Tell
fantasy
me about
races,
it.
all of these things have so many opportunities to have not just 2 genders and not just this sort of simplified, basic relationship structure. Oh, is this alien race has a 4 different genders, and how does that work? How do these relationships work? Does this fantasy race have polyamorous relationships by default? Oh, what genders are involved? Do they even have gender? Is this just a 1 gender race? There's so many interesting, cool ways to combine these ideas and different, totally radical kind of stories. I don't know if anyone else has ever done this.
I feel like I inherently do it sometimes. I can't think of any examples, but I'm just like, gender's dumb. It's not a part of this. Or gender's dumb. Here's a dumb example of something. I did think about the bathroom incident that you had mentioned earlier with the player, and I was thinking about how it would almost be cool if like someone saw that and their like character species or something didn't understand why it was split into two, and it became this whole thing of like walking into a town and fundamentally not understanding like why is everything like separated, what the fuck is going on, like what is wrong with humans, like do you break if you walk through the wrong door, what's going on?
The opposite
into
of never
flame.
having encountered a queer person, you've never encountered like cis heteropatriarchy.
Am I blue or am I pink?
What is this?
I'm like I'm
What
green.
color
Which door do I go through?
Uh-oh.
Is one for
I'm
horns?
purple.
Is one for not horns? What's going on?
What if you're purple? Does that mean I can go in either or I can't
And then-
go in either?
Amy mentioned in chat like alpha, beta, omega dynamics, like sigma, kind of like all of these kind of interesting like alternative gender systems, and the kind of like playing on those things, and especially like playing on them in a way where you're not just leaning into like traditional gender tropes, but just with a different label on them.
Yeah, because there's a lot of tropes with that setup. If you don't know what it is, I would say, I don't know if you should Google it. I don't want to explain it. This is not my job.
Yeah, be
Okay.
careful Googling that one.
Do not.
Okay, so what am I
Content
Googling?
warning, and be aware of what that is.
Content
I'm
warning.
not getting into it. Content warning for your Google search. But I have seen it done in ways that are very intriguing and that break the tropes that are built into it, because it often ends up being just a reskin version of a heteronormative setup. And it is, to me, that's boring. That's really not interesting.
It can be
But it
used
could
to
be
explore those
so much more
ideas in
interesting.
an interesting way.
Yeah, like questions of usually
The ridiculousness can kind of make some of those ideas
usually
can point out
feminine
the
type,
ridiculousness
usually
in a different
coded
way.
as like-
Sorry, I think there's a little bit of crosstalk here, so I missed part of what both of you were saying for
sorry.
a moment there. Are you okay with backing up a bit? Okay.
So I just want to say that, so like usually beta are like your regular average Joe person, alpha is like the dominant masculine type, and omegas are often coded as the feminine type, including like gender roles, etc. But that setting, the questions that I have are, so what would a trans experience in that be? What would a gay experience in that setting be? Like if
Exploring those ideas.
and
Yeah.
might need more context to understand that, but there's so much more cool stuff you can do with that.
And also
Going beyond
exploring
gender,
like what does
like,
it look like when you have a character from a race with different genders interacting with a human race? Like, okay, well, what is the attraction? Like, what is the relationship dynamics like? And when you have like an asexual race kind of thing, like if this race reproduces without any sort of interaction with others, like what does that look like? Do they have relationships? Like, how do these interactions work?
So just a quick time check-in. We do only have 5 minutes, so we should probably move towards our little exit spiels in a moment here. One thing that I do want to check in on this, because it's something that I felt like immediately in my gut when talking about like the aliens with the different genders and stuff like that, is that very, very often in these kind of narratives, at no point is it brought up or questioned that humans are also all like that. And it can be really common to have a fantasy setting where humans are presented as like, and we're like this totally species, we're the only two genders in this kind of way with these bathrooms, but these aliens are the trans narrative, or this robot is the trans narrative. And boy, howdy do I hate that. So just maybe a point of caution. If you're doing cool like trans narrative or bi aliens or whatever, make sure humans do it too, because we do.
Well, and using it to connect to the human character who maybe relates or maybe is curious or maybe has that kind of thing, like tying it together.
Yeah, totally. I think that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we're going to do a little outro kind of thing. I'm probably going to go in reverse order. So this means we will be starting with Ivy, and then going to Amy, and then going to Cal, then going to Tasha, then going to non-alternate. You're now OG Kelly, as far as I'm concerned. Sorry, other Kelly. And then me at the final moments here. But before we do that, is there any last minute stuff on this topic or any of the other topics y'all want to say? Okay, good. I don't know if we had time to anyways. I just want
I was going to say yes, but no.
we'll make sure you got a chance
I don't know
to
if we
share
missed any
a little bit.
questions that were in the chat, but
I
sorry
think
if
we
we
missed
did.
a couple, unfortunately.
Sorry.
Sorry,
I was
go for it.
Okay, so someone mentioned in the chat, real quick, talking about how queer coding of villain characters, but I think that is a topic for the next panel in the BBEG and what not to do with your creation of them. So I think that should probably be brought up there. So ask that again there, please.
Awesome possum. Good catch on that one. Real good segue,
Stay
because that's
tuned.
up in like all of 15 minutes, almost 20 minutes. I'm actually excited for that one. Okay, so little outro adventures. If you could please share your name, your pronouns, a little bit about you, where we can find you, what you do, and then maybe we won't do a favorite gay color on the way out just to save time. I'm sorry. So if you're feeling up for it, if you can go first, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, I'm Ivy. I'm Gamer the Girl everywhere else that you can possibly find me. My pronouns are she, her. I DM over on Dice Cream Sandwich. I am the CEO and founder of the Crit Awards, which I won't give too much away, but if you want to go nominate Dork Tales for a couple of things, I may have seen a name or two in a couple nominations. So if you want to go and nominate them, there's the Crit Awards. I am working with Geek Therapeutics to develop a safety tools and consent panel for Gen Con for all of that. So if you're interested in a presentation of that, I do that as well. I'm the PR manager for Geek Girl Con, and you can find me everywhere. I just finished up a level 20 Avernus game with Christian Navarro and Harley Kane and Nerd D and the Governor, and all of them. So you can watch that as well. Yeah, you can find me under everything as Gamer the Girl.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's been so lovely having you here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Amy, you ever go next?
Oh, yes. Hi, hello. I am Amy. I am Paradoxical Ghoul in the chat and on Twitch and on Discord and most things. And I stream on my own channel for sometimes. And I am a regular on Dork Tales. I run the Discord server. You can find me there. I am very present all the time.
It's true, and you're very amazing. Thank you for joining on this panel. Cal.
Hello. I've been Cal, and I'll continue being Cal. You can follow me on Twitch at neokal, Neokal, on Twitter, Neo_KAL. Same thing on TikTok. I want to be more involved in the community. But if you like hearing people geek out about like Transformers or cartoons, I'll be posting that kind of thing like on Twitter. I don't pay for it, so you actually have to like hunt me down on it. Probably not going to be on it that much longer. But yeah, Laser Comb Productions, like on YouTube or anywhere else, and you can find all the nerdy podcasts I've been co-hosting for the last 2 years.
Awesome. Well, thank you, and thank you for being a part of this rad panel.
Thank you.
Tasha.
Hello,
Oh,
I'm Natasha.
There you go.
I'm here on I'm here
you're
on
good.
Twitch under Natasha Tuskovich Design. Is it working? I think I'm delayed.
Fine, just keep
I'm
going.
gonna keep talking now. I'm here on Twitch under Natasha Tuskovich Designs. I'm also on YouTube, Instagram, and a bunch of other places. So check it out. I do streaming here about co-working. I do a lot of creative streams like art, fashion design, business, planning, and a bunch of other things. So if you like lo-fi and getting stuff done, if you're ADD, come check out my channel. And yeah, I've really enjoyed being on this panel. It's been cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. And all right, I guess second last, I'm last. How did this happen? But the opposite of least, for sharing the rad things, Kelly.
Yes, Kelly, they, them. I am on Tabletop Titties, which I believe is below me. I do a bunch of back-end stuff as well as the Storyteller there. I also realized that I was on a show with on Three Black Halflings called Big Trouble in Little Menus. So that was cool. I do a lot of like little things and then forget to like collect them into a space so that I can tell people I do that. I also am not on Twitter right now because it was hella depressing me, but you could probably find me at the Mind Right places. I don't know. I'm in a weird position right now. Just go to Titties, support us, support them titties.
So it's really weird being like a content creator right now when like one of the main social platforms is just aggressively becoming unusable. It's like where are people going to go next? I have no idea. But I'm I guess I'm going to me next. Thank you very much for joining and being part of this panel. It's been such a pleasure to have all of you. So I have been the sleepiest chronically host. My name is Millie, or Bunny Hearted. My pronouns are she and her, or they and them. I'm like a 90s anime comfort VTuber with a bit of a chaotic bent over at twitch.tv/bunnyhearted, or at bunnyheartedvt and a bunch of other places, or you can just go to bunnyhearted.com for the whole socials list of various thingamajangles. I'm gonna go to bed. It's like 1:15 at night for me. So I will see you all tomorrow. I'm gonna listen to the next panel as I fall asleep. It'll be like the ASMR experience of big bad evil villains. I'm fully here for it. I love you all so much. Thank you for joining on this panel with me and with all of you human beings. Thank you everyone who was hanging out in chat asking so many amazing questions. I really apologize for those that we missed. And I hope that you have a chance to ask them at future panels this weekend as Dork X continues. Ooh, hello, voice of Dork X.
Hello, this is the voice of Dork X. Thank you so much for...
It's Other Kelly.
It's Other... It is I. I'm here the entire time.
Kelly.
Aw, you're all wonderful. Thank you so much for... Thank you so much for being here. Yes, that is the Alpha Kelly. This is the Omega Kelly, and we're both moderately to extremely queer. So thank you so much for being part of this, and thank you so much for watching. Quick reminder that if you enjoyed this, there's a little tip button down there. You can tip, or you can join the Patreon, because we're only like 2 patrons away from a Star Trek Adventures game ran by our leading expert in Star Trek.
Wait,
Millie.
is that? Oh gosh, it probably is me.
It is you.
I'll have to do a panel about Andorian genders. Let's go.
Yeah, but soon we're going to have a panel on Big Bad Evil Guys, which is going to be in 15 minutes. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Good night, everybody. Well, good night, y'all. Bye.
Good night, y'all.